Today we got a question from Chad, who's from a small town in Oregon, and he's having a situation where he gets himself all psyched out. Now, before I get into the question, you may hear that I'm a little nasally right now. It's allergy season in Kentucky, and so my allergies are acting up. But I want to answer Chad's question because I relate to it. So again, Chad's from a small town in Oregon, and he says that because he's a blue belt, whenever he rolls with other blue belts or higher that come from bigger cities, maybe if he's visiting somewhere, maybe if they're stopping by his gym and training, he says whenever this happens, he gets himself psyched out. He goes into the role thinking this person has more black belts, more training partners, more experience, or more just more available training resources because they're in a bigger city, so they must be better. And so he says he knows it's a mental hang-up, but he's wondering if I have any experience with it. Now, I sent him back a question, and I asked him, I said, man, how do the roles generally go with them when you roll with them? And he says, generally speaking, he has a slight advantage over in the beginning, but he says what happens is as soon as that other blue belt that comes from the big city, as soon as they do something, maybe they get a good sweep, or maybe they get a good guard pass on them, or something like that, he says as soon as that happens, he just rolls over and dies, because he's thinking in his head, aha, see, I knew it. I knew this person was going to be better than me. And then when they start to get a little something on him, it confirms it, and he gives up. And again, he knows it's negative sort of mindset type stuff, but he's just wondering how to deal with it. So, brother, thank you for the question. So again, I've dealt with this because when I first started, first off, I'm in Kentucky. I'm not in Florida. I'm not in, California or any of the hot spots where jiu-jitsu really got big early on. And when I started back in 2003, I was training under a purple belt because that's what we had. And I was going to tournaments all the time where I was going up against people where they had black belt coaches or they came from bigger cities, things like this. And so I've dealt with this for a long time. I'm going to share two situations with you that I think might help you with your situation, because what you've got going on basically is you've got a confirmation bias. You're going into something with an idea of what's actually going to happen, right? You have a bias towards it. We do this with political views, right? We think something, so we go search out information to make it true. And so what's happening in this situation, you're doing this in a negative form where you are thinking that you're not as good as this person, and then even though when you're rolling with the person you have a slight advantage, as soon as they do something, you're kind of going, aha, see, I knew it, I was right. We do this with everything. One situation where I did this was with my guard. Again, you probably know this if you watch the videos. I started off in wrestling and got into jiu-jitsu afterwards. So I really wanted nothing to do with the guard. And intuitively, I just didn't feel like I was going to be good with it. I was like, I'm not going to be good with this guard stuff. It's just not for me. It's not my body type, whatever. But my coach had he had the sense to do it. He put me on my back for a couple months or whatever it was at the time. The old Schuster's getting kind of old. I realize this is almost like 20 years ago. So he had me on my back for several months, I think, at the time. And I was having to play from my guard position just over and over again. And I wasn't able to get on top unless I got a sweep to do so. And what would happen a lot of times in the beginning is I would go for like a sweep or a submission or something. And then as soon as my training partner started to pass my guard, I would be pushing, and then I would have this mental little thought would pop up, and it would say to me see, this guy's going to pass your guard. You're not good from the guard. Just go ahead and give up. And I would just lay down, die, let the guy submit me, then we'd restart. But I noticed it kept happening. It was a pattern. And I didn't want to feel like a bitch in training. So when I came in, I had this idea. I was like, okay, I know it's going to happen. My coach is going to put me on my back. As soon as the guy's passing my guard, I know that little thought's going to pop up in my head. I've got to be ready for it. And when it does, I'm going to squash it down, and I'm just going to sort of affirm myself that I'm going to keep going. Because, and this is the way that I looked at it, if all these other people around me could be decent from guard, I can be good at it too. And so what would happen is after coming in there with that mindset, it wasn't instant. It took a little while, but I started to have this sort of thought where as soon as the negative thought would pop up, I would squash it and put it down, and I would say, no, keep fighting. Let's go. We can do this. Just like them, we can do it too. And that mindset was much more useful for me, and I got better for it from the back. Now, we'll talk more about that in a second. Another situation that maybe would be kind of similar to yours, not exactly, but similar. When I first got my blue belt, I got it pretty quickly because I was just training all the time. I didn't do anything. I worked and went to jiu-jitsu all the time. That's all it did. And so I got my blue belt pretty quickly, and I thought too quickly. I was kind of nervous about it. And I remember my very first tournament, I competed as a blue belt. I remember I lost my first match, and I went into that tournament thinking that I wasn't going to be as good as I needed to be, or that I wasn't blue belt material. And when I lost that first match, instead of it just being like a loss, whatever, it happens, no big deal, I took it as a sort of confirmation to the fact that I wasn't ready for blue belt. I got off the mat. I was mad at my coach. I was like, I told you I wasn't ready for blue belt, and you gave it to me anyway. Now later on that day, I kind of dusted myself off, and they had a blue belt open class, and so I did the blue belt open class. Went in there, won 3 matches, and then I ended up losing in the finals, a real close match against a tough blue belt. And so again, won some matches, and sort of realized that, again, I've got some work to do to be a good blue belt, but I'm not bad. I belong. And so, again, I went into it with a confirmation bias, and I sort of proved it wrong. Now, where you can use this, and this is where I think you could probably, be useful, or where this can be useful to you, these stories. One is that if you want to figure, I think, to deal with this, at least this is how I did it. One is awareness, and the second is gather more conflicting evidence to sort of like prove yourself wrong. So with the awareness part of it, I don't think that you're going to be able to fight against this negative self-talk if you're not on guard for it, right? So you have to think about, first off, when is it coming up? When is this happening? For me, it was with my guard, right? That was a great example of where my negative self-talk would pop up. So you've got to be ready for it. So if you roll with someone, maybe you're traveling and you go to a gym and you're going to be like that, be ready for it. If some guy comes to your gym and he's from a big city and you hear it, boom, you're going to feel it, be ready for it. You got to you have to have a guard on the watchtower waiting for it. Then the second part of it is put yourself in those challenging situations more often, because the more you do it, the more you'll be able to prove yourself wrong. Just like me. Again, the more blue belt matches I had, the more I realized, I'm actually pretty good at this. And just like you're not getting blown out by these guys when you're rolling with them. You're actually doing pretty well against them. So what you need to do is you need to roll with them more and more. So this way you can kind of prove to yourself that, maybe Chad's better than Chad thinks. Just like me, maybe I'm better than I think I am. I say that all the time to you guys because that's what I went through for a long time. And so again, be aware that's happening, be ready for it. And then the second thing is be on guard and try to do things more. Every time you go on a trip, bring a gi with you, or bring some rash guards with you, or whatever it is that you want to do. If you have a guy that comes in to your gym from a big city, make sure you roll with him. Put yourself in as many challenging situations as possible, because this may not be someone else's issue. I know someone might be watching this and everybody likes to tell people what to do in the comments, but everybody's like, when they come into jiu-jitsu, everybody's got some mental hang up. You could take 10 different people, and through the same physical stimulus of training, those 10 different people are going to get something different mentally as far as their mindset goes. Some people might lack confidence, which is what I think you have. Some people might be overconfident and it kind of brings them down a little bit. Everybody's got different hang-ups, but through the training, through these challenging situations we experience, we can sort of become, better people, and stronger both physically and mentally. And so what I would say, Chad, is do that. Roll with people more often that are in those situations, and just be ready for it and be aware that it's going to happen. So this way you can sort of quieten it down. So brother, thank you so much for the question. I hope this is helpful to you. And guys, I will talk to you guys next time.